Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ontario Aquaculture Research Centre. I'm your host, Kaylee Moore, one of the agricultural assistants here at OARC. If you're looking to learn more about aquaculture, you're in the right place. On today's episode, we'll be doing an in-house interview with Graeme Woodall to discuss what it looks like to be an agricultural assistant here at our centre. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I'm super excited to do an in-house interview with Graeme Woodall. He's our other agricultural assistant here at our centre. So Graeme, I kind of started my aquaculture experience volunteering here at OARC, and you've kind of what I like to call go where the work is. So can you kind of just go into a little bit more in depth of your experience in aquaculture?
Sure, yeah. So I graduated from Fleming College, and from there I started an 8-week internship with the Ministry of Natural Resources in their fish culture section. So I went to the Normandale Fish Culture Station in Turkey Point, and they primarily focused on the rehabilitation of Atlantic salmon in Lake Ontario, in addition to the Chinook industry in Lake Ontario, the Chinook recreational fishing industry. So I did there for 8 weeks, unpaid, and then I did a good enough job there. They liked me enough, and I was able to kind of network, make some connections, and I did contracts the next 4 or 5 years between Normandale and Harwood Fish Culture Station, right on Rice Lake, just north of Cobourg. And then I also did a brief stint at the Blue Jay Creek Fish Culture Station on Manitoulin Island in Georgian Bay. I got to do a lot of fun stuff there. I got to work with walleye and different kinds of salmon and trout, any kind of native species that you can find in Ontario. I fortunately had the experience to culture and got to work with a bunch of different modern fish culture techniques and facilities, technologies. It was a really exciting part of my career. I had to move around for contracts, so I did that for 4 years, which was a stressful experience. So anything that couldn't fit in my car didn't get to come with me. So that was difficult, but the experience I got from that was a hoot. It was invaluable, once in a lifetime. I got to do a lot of stuff that most people don't get to say that they did. So I'm really thrilled to have been able to have that part of my career. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I wasn't able to keep securing contracts. That is the nature of the contract game. If you want to decide to do that for your career, you got to know that it's very likely it may or may not work out for you. It's it was a risky game to play, but I think it really paid off for me in the long run. I got to do a lot of a wide range of stuff, and I thought that was really exciting. Right after that, I spent a year in the private sector at Linden Fish Hatcheries, just in New Dundee, outside of Kitchener. I was there for a year. I took lead on all of their egg and fry production, and it was interesting to have that kind of a different experience, to go from supporting roles in a natural rehabilitation environment to go to a pure agricultural production environment. So it was a large gap to cross, because you have two very different goals you're trying to achieve. So we have, we're just trying to, in the Ministry of Natural Resources, we're trying to, rehabilitate a species. We're trying to produce the best possible species that we hope can survive in the wild, and how to rehabilitate those environments. But we go to agricultural production, and now we're focusing on trying to produce as much, quality market-sized fingerlings or full market-sized trout that we can, to produce straight to market, and trying to produce as many as we can in a cost-effective manner, and to produce the best quality produce for the industry. So you naturally had very different work environments. So
Kind of like myself, I took Fish and Wildlife at Sioux College. You took the Fish and Wildlife program at Fleming College. You then bridged over and took the aquaculture program. It's a co-op program at Fleming College. What made you kind of narrow your studies into aquaculture focus?
Sure. So I started in the Fish and Wildlife Technician program, a 2-year diploma program at Fleming College, and a lot of my peers, almost everybody who was in the program, everybody came in with a similar goal. Like, I want to be a conservation officer, and everybody wants to be a conservation officer. And unfortunately, nobody knows how many people want to be a conservation officer until you go to school and you're talking to all your friends, and like, hey, what would you like to do? Like, why'd you go to this school for? Why are you in this program? And everybody says the same thing. You quickly realize that, there's a lot of competition, and it might be really tough. So it's, I really had to look at, okay, if I'm not going to be a conservation officer, how do I diversify my qualifications and really decide what direction in the environmental field I want to go in? Because the Fish and Wildlife program was very diverse, and it taught you a lot of information about a lot of different things, but you never really specialized in one particular thing. And it's very difficult to come into the workforce without specializing in something, to have a specialized interest. And I made the mistake of, while I was in school, I wasn't actively specializing. I was just doing my courses and getting my diploma. And by the time I graduated, I had some peers who had spent their summers working in fisheries management, who doing summer positions, and had already kind of, planted seeds of their career of where they wanted to go. And once I graduated, I realized, okay, like I have these qualifications, but I need something else to give me a little bit of a kickstarter to get a foothold in the industry somewhere. And I had done a paper in my vertebrate biology class on salmonid parasites. And I never really had a huge interest in fish or salmon before, but I started writing this paper, and I found that salmon biology was fascinating. And I had spent weeks, I've never been more invested in a piece of schoolwork. And I thought it was so interesting that, like, salmon biology and the way that, they interact with the environment, and the way that, and certain pathogens and bacteria and parasites can interact with salmon in the wild. Okay, well, that's really interesting. Like, salmon are cool. Like, that's cool. So and just the year before I graduated, the Fleming College had restarted their aquaculture program. And a couple people were talking about it. Word was kind of getting around. It was in the rumor mill, like, hey, have you heard about aquaculture? Like, oh, like, what's that? What's aquaculture? Like, what's going on? It's like, oh, well, it's salmon farming. Like, you work with fish. I'm like, oh, well, fish are pretty cool. What kind of career can I do with that? And I was like, because I wanted to work in the M&R, and that was kind of my goal going into Fish and Wildlife. And I said, well, look, they do fisheries work. They rehabilitate our natural water bodies in Ontario. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. That's cool. And I learned about the Atlantic Salmon Restoration Program, and this tremendous project that they're doing to rehabilitate the natural population of Atlantic salmon back to Lake Ontario that have since been extirpated. They're a natural species, and now they're not there anymore, and we're trying to put what's supposed to be there back in there. I thought, what, that's something I want to be a part of. Let's change the world. Let's go for it. So that's what really got my interest into aquaculture, was the environmental rehabilitation and restoration is what got me interested in it. So coming out of that program, I was able to have those skills where I was able to transfer into that field rather seamlessly. It was a lot of work, but I was able to give myself the experiences to get in there. So
yeah, and I got to interview John, who runs the program there.
Yeah.
He talks about having the hatchery on site and being able to give you those proper tools so that you can come out of the course and apply those in field, which is, it's better than having no hands-on experience, right? Absolutely. I know a majority of the people, for myself, I've talked about this before in other videos, it's just I came into here having no aquaculture experience. I had, fish science focus and doing, lake surveys and things like that and dealing with fish, and I enjoyed working with fish, but I never got to even get a little bit of a taste of what aquaculture looks like till being here.
For sure.
But that being said, you kind of talking about your work experience in the beginning, you've got a lot of variety. You've worked in food production, you're now working in research with some food production. You've done some conservation rehabilitation. So what aspect of aquaculture have you enjoyed the most between all of these experiences?
I thoroughly enjoyed the restoration work because that's what got me into this line of work in the first place. It's got a lot of the same highs and lows as all aquaculture does. So I mean, you have your jobs that are really glamorous and they're flashy and they're a lot of fun, and then you have jobs that may not be glamorous, but it's an everyday part of the job that everybody has to do. So I think that it's fairly transferable all the way through. I did like the restoration work because, it was very glamorous. We were out in the field doing wild egg collections, like setting trap nets on Lake Manitou for collecting lake trout eggs, collecting walleye eggs, doing electrofishing in the Credit and the Ganaraska for rainbow and Chinook eggs. Like, that was, being out in the field doing that was an absolute hoot, once in a lifetime. I was able to do helicopter stalking in lakes in northern Ontario, like once in a lifetime. Never be able to do that again. That was such an extraordinary experience, and to go into college with a desire to work in the environment, do environmental rehabilitation, like that is probably what I enjoyed the most. Transferring to what I'm doing now is a lot of the same, where I was able to transfer my passion for the environment to a sustainable agricultural future, which is, in my opinion, honestly, just as important. So I enjoy this just as much because I've kind of redirected where I want my passion to be. And I think what we're doing here is of the utmost importance in regards to like a sustainable future. I think sustainable farming is just as important as a sustainable environment. So it's and then in between, like, farming I didn't find it was a great fit for me. It didn't have the same I didn't get the same drive out of it that some people do. I needed to be focused on, I wanted to change the world. It was I was eager, I was bright-eyed. I wanted to, really get in there and, being able to be a part of a bigger picture, it was really important to me. So, like, I enjoyed being able to be a part of agricultural production. I enjoyed the experience, but I didn't quite find the same drive as I do working with the kind of projects that we're a part of now.
Yeah, and I completely agree with like my work experience that I've had. Like, I find the feeling like there's almost like more of a purpose type of style in work that you're doing, that you kind of see the before and in the middle and then the after result, which is really exciting. And that's what you see kind of in like research focused or rehabilitation type work. But now that you're here and you're doing research and you've kind of realigned your focus, can you kind of give an outline to the public who may be looking to become like a fisheries technician or an agricultural assistant, what your day-to-day kind of looks like right now?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, most days typically are very similar. They all look the same. You come to work and, as an agricultural assistant, I'm mostly as a support position. So I have my own area that I look after, that I'm in charge of. So it's, you come in, you assess the fish, make sure, hey, is there anything notable, like how's everybody doing this morning? Like, everybody looks happy, this is great. And then clean the tanks, feed the fish. If we have any kind of research project that's going on, then it's usually it requires something a little like technically special that's a little bit different than our standard like production for our trout. So it's usually taking care of that. And then in addition to those roles, I do a lot of maintenance, and I guess you would call it supervisory maintenance, as far as, looking and documenting on a daily basis all of our pump levels and all of our water chemistry, and kind of assessing those numbers on a daily basis, and doing daily maintenance on those kind of things. And if there's, problems with our pumps or problems with our water chemistry, so like assessing those and doing daily work on those kind of things. So, but it also involves, like, on a less daily basis, we have things like fish moves and grading, spawning. There's a lot of things that I try and fill in wherever there's a gap. That's where I go. So I'm kind of a minor jack of all trades, where it's just wherever I need to be is where I go to support. So,
and a lot of facilities like here, and you hear about at different farms, like, it doesn't really matter what your role is where you are, but we like work together so that everything gets done, because in the end we're all on call, and if something happens in the middle of the night, like, it's on somebody to come and fix it. So, like, you are a jack of all trades, and we all just pitch in like, I need help doing this, so we just make it work. Kind of my last question for you is, do you have any advice for, say, like someone who is looking to get into aquaculture, or say like even yourself, like back when you started, what's something you didn't know that you've learned through your experience that you might want to share with anyone?
No, for sure. So depending on what you want to do, because there's such a wide variety of things that you can do with an aquaculture diploma. Whatever you want to do, there's such a wide world of things you can do. You can go across the world, you can stay in Ontario, you can go anywhere in Canada. Whatever you're interested in, you got to take that time to find where you want to go. Like, do you want to work on a cage farm in BC and be in that environment and to, breathe that ocean air every day, that's the kind of office that some people really want? Or are you more interested, like myself, I'm more interested in environmental rehabilitation? And that's not just in Ontario. Like, every province has a government funded program for the most part that you can research and be a part of. And it's all about kind of figuring out where your passions are and where you want to go with it, right? But I think it's something you really have to plan for, right? You can't, I think you'll be doing yourself a disservice by essentially just going to school and keeping your head down, doing your work, and then not really figuring out exactly where you want to go and what you want to do with it. Like, I knew first going into my education, knowing where I wanted to go, and then doing networking as I went so that I could kind of lay seeds for my career once I graduated. So I'd already, like, during my time in the aquaculture program, I was already talking to the folks at the Normandale Fish Culture Station, because I knew, like, hey, that's somewhere I'd like to maybe not work full time, because I know, jobs are slim in the M&R and it's hard to get in, but if I can, just get in, just kind of see what it's about and get some experience and just say that I was a part of it, that would be excellent. So it really depends on where you want to go and what you want to do, but it's super, super important to network, and to have, people who know you and who can help you out to try and open doors for you, because unfortunately, the more specialized you go, the harder it's going to be to worm your way in the door, and you really need to be able to make sacrifices and to, it's not the same as, working for like a really large company that, hires, 10, 15 people a year. There are small niche companies like research branches or government branches that, they might hire one person a year. So you really need to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to have the experience to qualify or to get my name in there and to really, what do I need to do? So it's something that I think everybody needs to think about if that's the direction they want to go in. Like for me, knowing that if I wanted to get a full-time job in the M&R, it was going to be an uphill battle, because I knew there weren't a lot of open full-time jobs and they don't come up that often. So I knew, okay, like, I'm going to have to make some sacrifices. Like, if I'm going to be doing contracts, I might not even have contracts to fill the entire year. I might only be working 4 or 5 months out of the year and then filling it with something completely different. And I was extremely fortunate enough to have 2 or 3 contracts a year that I could fill 8 to 10 months of my year with fish culture work in the M&R. But that might not be, my success story would be completely different to somebody else's. And it's important to, if you're going to go in that direction, to really be honest with yourself and say, okay, like, this is what I want to do and I'm going to give it my all, but hey, it might not work out. And I might not get full-time work. And it might be really difficult. And I have to move around the province, and I got to live in my car. And every 4 months, I got to look for a new place to live. Yeah. And every 4 months, I have to call up my manager and say, hey, do you have work for me? Please. Yeah. And so it's an uphill battle, and your friendships and relationships get strained because you're always moving across the province. You have long distance connection to everybody. You have no stability, but
it's worth it.
It's worth it. Like, it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I know my experience is not the exact same, but I'm still on contract, and it can work. Contracts can work. But you have to have patient people in your life, and that is a huge thing, and that's a big aspect. I mean, like Graeme said, like, I lived in my car for 4 summers in a row, and I mean, you pick your car on the amount of storage it can hold. But like, in the end, you find yourself in some really cool experiences. You talked about some really great field experiences. You got to do helicopter stalking
Absolutely.
and things like that. And without those sacrifices, you wouldn't get those life skills and that work experience to find yourself a permanent position here.
Yeah,
so
no, I've been very lucky. No, I've been very, very lucky. The other thing that I fell victim to when I first came out of school was you come out of school and you just got all this new information. You're really excited to try it out. You want to, I want to like show everybody what I can do, and like, oh, I'm really hot. I'm ready to come into the workforce, and people do tell you that, hey, you know what? Not all parts of aquaculture is glamorous. We're not always spawning. We're not always moving fish or handling fish, and sometimes work is dirty, and sometimes at the end of the day you're covered in elbow deep in all the bodily fluids a fish has to offer. But it's important to know and appreciate when you first come into the workforce that there's going to be a lot of grunt work, and some of it might not be enjoyable, but it's up to you to acknowledge and appreciate the roles of each of these jobs that you're given, right? When I first started and I was going to an M&R hatchery, so I'm going to do amazing things and I'm going to have a lot of fun, and my first couple of weeks I was just cleaning tanks. And I remember thinking like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. But after a couple of days, it was really thinking like, well, the Atlantic salmon need to be successful. And in order for them to be successful, they have to have like pristine rearing units. They're a sensitive fish. So, and if somebody doesn't do that job right, well, now we're compromising our ability to produce a quality stock.
Yeah.
So even though it's not a glamorous job and it's dirty and it kind of stinks a little bit, it is just as important to have those tanks immaculate and to get in there and get dirty and scrub them down as it is to the person next door who's spawning those fish. Mm-hmm. So not all jobs may be glamorous, but they're all like crucial to that component in that clock. Every gear needs to work. So like that's something that I think a lot of people coming out of school, some people that I've talked to fall victim to, where they're like, well, I thought there'd be more, like I wanted there to be more excitement. It'll come in time. And it's important to acknowledge every job has its purpose and it is important. And, all the glamorous pieces will come in time and everybody gets to do them, but there is grunt work and you just have to acknowledge and appreciate, the importance of every job there is in like an aquaculture environment.
Yeah, and it's like any job, right? You gotta kind of start at the bottom and work your way up to get the experience so that you can move up and fill roles in other places. But
for sure.
That's all I have today. I want to thank you, Graeme, for sitting down with me. I know we both need to get back to some sampling and some oxygen readings and stuff like that before we go into the holiday season. But I just want to thank you for sharing your experience with aquaculture and
Cool. Right on.
Hey guys, I hope you liked the video today. If you did, please swim on over and hit the like button and subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions you want answered in any of our future videos. Hope to see you next time.